Right, so today we have Nathan Wood with us. Nathan is just left a role with the ECB of interim head of coach development. Is that right?
Long title, yes.
A long
You got it
title.
right, yeah.
It's a very good title, and has a background as a professional cricketer, a coach in many roles from Lancashire and more, and is probably the best purveyor of the sidearm I've ever seen. If you don't know what that is, it's like the plastic arm that you can put a ball in to throw for your pet dog at the
Dog
park.
stick, yeah.
But this is with a cricket ball, and it was the most amazing thing I've ever watched from the sideline.
Wow, well, I'm very flattered. It wouldn't be the same now,
No,
James, with my
no.
sciatica, but yeah.
It was running up. You were running off a full run up,
Where was this?
and this is in the nets at Old Trafford.
Oh, right, okay.
Probably 2015,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah,
The club I was at the time were practicing
Right.
Afterwards,
Right.
and I'd turn up early and have a nosy
Yeah.
at what was going on. But yeah, anyway, welcome.
nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
So let's start with what you're up to now, and then we can obviously delve back into everything in the past.
Yep.
What is it you do now?
Yep, so as you said in your intro, I finished that role at England Cricket. I think it was September the 30th, and I had a bit of time to kind of gather my thoughts and think about the next stage. So about a month ago, I relaunched actually, a consultancy, which I first began before I joined ECB.
Right.
Having said that, 3 weeks of that 4 weeks, I've been stuck in bed, being poorly. So it's not been the greatest launch, relaunch
Slow
that a company's ever seen. But I managed to get a bit of work done behind the scenes in bed. So hopefully from today, I can attack it with gusto.
Yeah. And so consultancy, what kind of stuff do you do?
So we've got 4 buckets, for want of a better word, services. The first, and it's all around coaching, mentoring, leadership. The first is performance mentoring. So that is basically helping, supporting, guiding, challenging folk in the high performance environment. That could be an athlete, it could be a head coach, a director of sport, but people operating in that high performance space. That's bucket number 1. The second bucket I'd class as personal coaching, which is for everybody who wants to embark on personal growth, professional growth.
Yeah.
That could be a baker, it could be an accountant, it could be somebody with a life change, somebody who wants to think about changing jobs. It could be how they get more confidence, but applying to everybody. Third bucket would be coaching the coaches, and we in my world we call that coach development.
Yeah.
So we develop the coaches to become even better at what they do. And then the fourth would be leadership training, and that is in the form of workshops for organisations, helping develop their current leaders and maybe future leaders.
Yeah. It's funny, we always talk about leadership and management, and it's very clear from the first job I ever had that the skills that make you very good at your job and a leader within your peers might not be the same skills that make you a good manager.
Absolutely.
And invariably, that's not what happens, especially in things like sales and maybe sport, actually, where it's very individual and self-absorbing in your targets and what you've got to do. And then you have to start thinking about other people.
Absolutely the same as in sport. So one of the, a battle is a strong word, but one of the challenges that I had in my role at England cricket was trying to convince people of that very thing, that just because you've been a good player, it doesn't actually mean that you can help others to be good players, to be a good coach, because the playing side is you doing something.
Yeah.
The coaching side is actually helping others to figure it out themselves and get the best out of them. And it's exactly the same, a salesperson who's used to, I don't know, selling 1 million units of whatever, and then suddenly they get some success at that, and then they go and manage other sale folk. It's a different skill set, and sometimes it's a role, a job that they don't actually enjoy doing.
Yeah.
It's just a promotion, probably a bit more money, a bit more status.
Yeah.
But it takes them away from actually what they were good at. So, do two different skill sets.
Yeah.
I would say.
And it's probably a good moment to go back into the sporting world and to what you grew up in and what's kind of brought you to this area and coaching and coach development. Where did it start? So you obviously come from a cricketing family.
Yeah. So my dad was a good player. Much better than me.
Much better than most people.
Played for England.
Yeah.
Had a good career, finished at 42, 43, a long career.
Nice.
And my mum didn't work. So the only thing that I knew growing up was cricket, because all the network that we had was cricketers and people involved in cricket.
Yeah.
So it was literally everything that I knew. And in fact, I was surprised when I found out that my peers at school, their dads did accountancy or whatever. I was like, really? You're not professional sportsmen? So, it was literally the only thing that I knew. And so it was I think it was a natural progression for me to
get involved,
start playing cricket, and I did. And I got onto the staff at Lancashire. I think the coaching side of things came about because I didn't reach my potential as a player, and I was very ambitious, but I didn't get to where I wanted to be. And so through that process, I would analyse not just myself, like why am I not getting the success that I want, crave, but also analyse others. They're having success. How can I learn from those? And so I learned a mindset of how to kind of study and absorb and learn and reflect. And so when I finished cricket as a player at 26, I think, which is the average age that all professional cricketers finish, believe it or not. I mean, bonkers, isn't it?
Yeah.
I literally didn't know what else to do, So coaching was something that I naturally gravitated to, and I did. But there wasn't much money in it. So, as a professional sportsman, you had, I was used to a certain level of lifestyle and income, and then as soon as I went into coaching, that dropped dramatically. Yeah. So I quickly kind of pivoted, and set up set up a business which evolved into a couple of other businesses on the back of it, which were around fitness. Yeah. Again, something that I knew about from being a sportsman. But it enabled me to make a living from that, and I did that for quite a lot of years, 10, 11 years. And from that, one of the things that I ended up doing there was, as we brought on more staff, I ended up coaching them to be better, purely from a selfish business perspective, because my quit learning is in that job, that role, it's far cheaper to keep your customers that you've got than to attract new ones. And so I spent a lot of time actually coaching the staff that we had to keep their customers. And so that it was a link back to coaching. And then from there, I had a bit of a personal situation that led me to want to go down a different path, kind of put that fitness, health set of businesses to one side. And I ended up going back to coaching. I went back to Old Trafford. I drove to Old Trafford one day and said, can I help? And I started getting back into cricket coaching. Yeah. And then I got into the qualification side. And then I ended up kind of being offered the job, kind of looking after those qualifications. And then I got into the role at England Cricket. So really, it's all that I've known. Yeah, to be honest.
It's amazing how much is related to sport in, I'm going to say, the real world, but you know what I mean, in different, in the business world, in any environment where you've got other people you've got to interact with or get the most out of, or any performance issues or anything like that. It's amazing how much it translates.
I've got a book at the moment that I read every day. It's called The Daily Stoic. Right. And a good friend of mine gave it me. And basically it's each day there's a corresponding date to when you read it. So what is it, the 20th of November today, is it? I'll open today, it'll say 20th of November, and it'll have at the top of the page a quote from a Greek philosopher, for example, with a translation underneath. Yeah. And so you read a page every day, and I've read it for over a year now. I'm kind of going on my second cycle. Yeah. And you're thinking, why the hell am I talking about Stoics? But the link is that the stuff that those Stoics were talking about 2,000 years ago is exactly the same things that we're talking about now. The same issues, the same problems that we've got with ourselves, with interacting with other people, just slightly different contexts. And we've got mobile phones, and they had, I don't know, loincloths or whatever. But it's the same stuff, and it's whether it's in sport, whether it's in business, whether it's in freelance work, personal relationships, it is all the same stuff. Yeah, getting the best out of other people and getting the best out of yourself.
Going back to the cricket, your time as a cricketer, growing up, did you have any? So, in my mind, you have your favourite cricketers and people that you love watching and you aspire to be like when you're playing. But then you also got your dad that's playing, who's a prominent England cricketer, Lancashire, and your dad. Is it who did you kind of look up to when you were starting?
Definitely looked up to my dad. He was an absolute hero. But I was also a massive fan of Viv Richards, who I think you could perhaps argue was a bit different in style to my dad, and me. Yeah. But I enjoyed watching my dad play because he was my dad, and he was a classy, player, actually, a touch player, an accumulator. Viv, though, was like explosive, swagger, showbiz, entertainer. Yeah. So yeah, absolute dad was a hero. Viv was close second. Yeah.
Well, is there expectation then on yourself based on your dad and being within that environment that you feel, well, you're trying to live up to that? Do you feel that was a factor in your cricket? And
definite expectation level. Yeah. I think the thing that I struggled with the most was forging my own identity in my own right. So an example would be, on the rare occasion that I did okay on the pitch, the headline in the newspaper the next day would be Nathan, son of Barry.
Yeah.
So much so, actually, that my nickname for a bit was Son of. All right, Son of. All right, Son of. Son of. And, you know, my dad played at Lancashire, I played at Lancashire. When I joined Lancashire, a lot of people still around at the club. You know, it could be anybody. It could be head coaches, dressing room attendants, people on the gate, people in the office, but they all knew my dad. And it was like, hey, how's your dad? You know, as much as that's nice to talk about, I actually got frustrated because, you know, I want you to kind of see me as Nathan in my own right, not son of.
Yeah.
So kind of being seen as an individual actually was one of my challenges, which I probably, you know, didn't handle that well.
No.
Ego, actually.
Yeah.
You know, you mentioned ego. Same thing.
Yeah.
You know, I want to me. You know, not my dad. Me.
I think some people mentally can control that and control decision making based on controlling their ego. I never had that ability.
Yeah.
You know, from a self-awareness point of view. One thing you hear from professional cricketers or sportsmen, or I think it more so in cricket than anything else, especially as a batsman actually, where it's relentless. To actually make it into the first team is relentless. You know, you've got to score runs constantly, and there's no two ways about it. A dip in form here and there. I heard on the radio they were talking about the guy who's England vice captain at the moment, Ollie, and they're saying, no, he dip in form, and he literally probably 3 or 4 games without 100. You know what I mean? And then once you're in there, you've got to keep your place and you've got to score runs.
Yeah.
We've spoken before at the side of a cricket ground about you've got a really good story about that from your own personal experience.
Well, I mean, it all depends on the competition around you. So, and timing is everything.
It is. Yeah.
And I played in the Lancashire team of the 90s, which was a really, really strong team, full of great batters, actually. And unfortunately for me, those batters were 4 or 5 years ahead of me, which makes a big difference. And all of them play for England. So I was labelled quite rightly as an opening batsman, but my competition at Lancashire was the then England captain, Mike Atherton. We had Jason Gallion, who was an England player. We had Steve Titchard, who didn't play for England, but a good player. John Crawley, England player. All these folk who, you know, were ahead of me in age and status at that time. So there was no way that I was going to get in there. So I played a lot of cricket in the second team. And I remember one year, I got a stat loads of runs. I mean, stat loads of runs, you know, like 1,200, you know, absolutely. Didn't get one game in the first team, one game. And then the next year, I remember the head coach at the time was David Lloyd, Bumble Lloyd. And he said, you're close. Getting in the first, you're close.
Trying to keep you interested, isn't
yeah,
it?
all you need, if you get 100 in this match, you're in. You're in. So, okay.
But hadn't you scored like 3 in a row before that?
Maybe the season. I don't know, but I was. It's a long time ago now. But I played in this match and I scored 90. Yeah. But I scored 90. I didn't score 100. Yeah. And I thought, well, that'll do. That didn't fit me. No. It never fit me. So that was. I think that's an example of it was tough to get into. And then once I got into the side, I went and I got a big 100 against Surrey, a good Surrey side. They won the title that year actually at the Oval, 155. I think it was the last game of the year, championship match. Got a big 100 there. Started in the team the next year, first team. I think I played 2 innings. Right. Maybe across 2 games. And the head coach then, it was a different head coach, a guy called Dav Watmore, lovely guy, came up to me and says, Woody, I'm under a bit of pressure, mate. You're going to have to score some runs, otherwise you're out.
No
3 innings ago, I scored 150.
Yeah.
So it was relentless. You have to be on your A game all the time, particularly if you haven't cemented your place in the side.
Yeah.
Quite rightly, you know, if you've proven your worth over a period of time, that does buy you time. But getting in and staying in is, you know, it can be tough.
Yeah.
It can be tough. And ultimately, it was at Lancashire at that time. It was too tough for me.
It's quite a common story, that, isn't it? In terms of Lancashire at that time, there was an established team of big names and that all knew each other and were a very close unit, I think.
Yeah.
And, to get into that was, and then be in that dressing room. I mean, one thing I'd never really appreciated was you might hate the person that you sat next to in the dressing room. Hate's a strong word, but this is your living, this is your job, and it's not getting on with people. But that can really play with your psychology and your form and your, you know.
There's a lot at play here.
There's such a lot mentally, isn't there, that goes into.
And there's a lot. You know, there's a lot of folk, coaches actually, who will talk about, you know, these are team games: football, rugby, cricket. Yes, but do not underplay the importance of people's inner battles with themselves about actually doing what they can to displace their teammate.
Sure.
And that does, or can, should I say, promote ruthless, selfish behaviours that are not in the benefit of the team.
Right.
So I think that if you've got a collection of players who actually, and this is what I think England cricket have done over
Really
the last couple of years, they've gone, we've selected you and we believe in you and you're just going to be in the team. That's it. It enables you to kind of do what's best for the team, because you know that if your performance drops today, that you're not going to be out on your ear. Whereas historically, you know, if you don't perform, your teammate's going, you know, who's in the reserves, going to take your place. And what does that mean? It's not just taking your place. It's probably a drop in income. It's a drop in status. It's your future. And so when you get dropped, the first thought is, well, how do I get my place back? Yeah. And sometimes that can lead to behaviours that aren't great. You know, that
inhibit the result of the game.
It's a dog eat dog, you know, mentality that people will do what they need to do, and that's not working for the team. You know, so it's a real interesting combination, I think.
So what makes a good coach? There's a question, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, fundamentally, if you break it down, two things. One, they absolutely want to help the person in front of them or the team in front of them succeed. They are putting their interests ahead of their own. So that would be the first thing. You know, it's a selfless thing to do. It's not a selfish thing to do. Playing is selfish. It's all about you, actually. Sorry, I'll hit the mic then. Coaching is selfless. It's all about others. Right. And then the second thing would be loving what you do, which means that you constantly try to improve yourself, learn and become more wise as a coach. So if you don't have those two elements, I think your days will soon be numbered, because the first point where it's all about the players, if you don't have that, then your players will see through it. They will see through that. and that will come back to haunt you. And if you are constantly not looking to update your skill set as a coach, knowledge, etc., skills, you'll get outdated very, very quickly.
Yeah.
So I would say those two things are the most important.
How big is communication?
Well, now you've said that, I mean, it's a third one, isn't it? I mean, it's key. I mean, if you don't have those first 2 points in place, and you can't communicate, you're goosed. So massively important. I mean, there's so many things, aren't there? It's difficult to, say these are the most important things, because there's so many different coaches out there who've done it differently. But I would say that I'm struggling to think of a coach who, hasn't been able to deliver their messages in the way that they want to deliver. And something that you mentioned earlier, you mentioned about your ego kind of getting in the way of your batting. I think that coaches actually, if they're able to put their ego aside and manipulate their emotions, control their emotions so that they can deliver the message that is needed at that time, that is a real big skill. So an example would be, you're livid inside as a coach, you've got high emotions, you're angry at the performance, but at that moment in that time, they've just been defeated. Perhaps bringing that emotion in is not going to serve the team well. And so you need to, have the emotional intelligence, the emotional control to be able to go, okay, I'm feeling this, but I'm not going to give that. I'm going to, package it in a different way. And that's communication, isn't it? Or part of communication. So, good one, definitely.
I was
stick it to the list.
To another podcast, and it was a special forces guy, an ex-special forces guy, and he hadn't been in a battle before, and he was on his first deployment, and it was kicking off, and he was on the radio to the base or people above, and he was saying that he was freaking out a little bit. He was going mad on the thing, and the guy on the radio said, "Calm down. This isn't helping anyone. Psychology is contagious." And I thought, what a wonderful phrase that.
Yeah, so we would call it emotional transference.
It's another good way.
So one of the things that we used to do at England Cricket with the more established coaches or the professional coaches, we'd take them up to the Lake District and basically harness them up and throw them over cliffs and, put the fear of God in them or whatnot. And I remember one time we were at the top of this truly humongous cliff edge. And we were saying, right, you're going over. And the group were kind of fairly confident. And then the first two went up and they looked down and you could see that their emotional state changed. And it went through the group like a dose of salts. That was transferred onto them. And so you're absolutely right that as a leader, as somebody who's doing something first, or even somebody who just walks into a room, let's say it's a happy occasion or whatnot, and everyone's pretty relaxed, and somebody comes in with like a face like thunder. It changes like that. And if you are a leader or a coach, or it's your job to get the best out of others, you really need to be mindful of the impacts that your emotional leakage will have on other people.
As you get older and playing club cricket, I did have a captain say to me once, "I know you're not happy at the moment, but you need to control it because everyone goes off. Because if you're a big personality and bigger physically these days, but in any kind of environment, it comes from you really. People look to you, I was transferring my disappointment in life and cricket at that moment into everyone else's day.
Yes.
You know.
And we've all done it, haven't we? I mean, I did it probably more than most, and more dramatically than most. You know, before I kind of got the self-awareness of the impact of my behaviours. I think one of the things that had a massive impact on me was going down that coach education road, because it shone a light on me.
Yeah.
It made me think, actually, you know. So one of the things that we start the process off, or we used to, when I went through it as a coach, was you do a 360.
Yeah.
So you know what 360 is?
Yeah, but on yourself, you know.
So you have a questionnaire basically, and you fill out the questions, and it's based, you know, how, you know, do you think you're a good leader? You know, marks out of 5. 5. Why do you think you're good? Because of this. Boom, boom, boom. And they have a set of questions, and you mark yourself. Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
And then you have other people doing the same on you. So at the end of the process, you get this report, and it says, right, you've scored yourself this in total, and also here's a breakdown in each category. You know, 100 out of 100.
Right, of course.
And here's what everybody else thinks. 10 out of 100, you know. Yeah. And it's like, oh my God, this is my reality. And this is what other people's reality is. This is how other people are seeing me. And so that is really impactful, actually, because suddenly you're going, well, why are they seeing me like that? And then you start thinking, well, you know, well, what can I do to kind of amend that? So I don't know how I got onto that, but
but that's really interesting in leadership and in the for business owners as well. I think I had a bit of a transformational week a few weeks ago when we were doing work for a client and we were creating content for them about branding, and we had a chat with them about it because branding is different to different people, and that it's one of their main areas and services. And so it's not just a logo; it's every touch point with a potential client or member of staff or meeting that you have, with how you are, what coffee's available, you know, what the carpets are like, you know, as simple as that. And every little thing has an impression on someone, and that is your brand. And it's really important that when you're talking with staff or people outside the business, that you create these repeatable kind of behaviours and language that people expect and are comfortable with, and it's your brand then. And I thought actually that really kind of transfers well to any situation.
And someone like Steve Jobs took it to the nth degree, didn't he? So, I mean, loads of people will have read his book. One of the things that I kind of picked out from it was, you know, that attention to detail in everything, even went into the phone, which was sealed, that no one could see, but he knew it.
Yeah.
He knew that actually he wanted that inside of that phone to be beautiful, to look beautiful and to be right, you know, even though no one's going to see it. So, you know, you can take it to the nth degree, but it is important. You know, it is in everything that you do and every interaction that people have with you, because one poor interaction can discredit the whole, you know, shebang, can't it?
I remember doing some coaching a long time ago. So I think it was an under 13s, and they were playing up, and it was becoming a bit of an issue, and I lost it with them. And afterwards, I'll obviously look back to that and think that's when you lost that group, which I don't think I really did, but in my mind I feel like that was a moment where something on either side went, and it was, you know, I don't know where I'm coming from with that. It's a sign of it being a Thursday where I've gone into a ramble about something. But you probably, you know, relate to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, when you had that rant, again, which we've all done, you can come back from that. I think one of the things that's... So when you said what's important about coaching, I think my first point was make sure that they know that, you care.
Yeah.
I think that actually, if people know that you have their best interests at heart, they will tolerate bad behaviour from time to time. They might not tolerate it at that moment, in that moment.
Yeah.
But there's a reconciliation that can take place, because when everything's died down, do you know what? He was like that, she was like that, because he was passionate, disappointed. He's got our best interests at heart. It's when people have a rant and it's about, things like...
It's more about them.
It's more about them, exerting dominance because they want to be the dominating figure or whatever it is. That's when it becomes an issue. So I'm sure those, young folk that you were coaching, they kind of...
I have actually spoken to a few of them about that, and they laugh. They don't really recall it.
Oh, right.
They seem to look back on that season fondly, which was amazing for me at the time, because all I focused on was that one moment where I lost it. I took it over. One of the parents didn't want to do it, and I reluctantly took over the job, which I really quite enjoyed. But I think that kind of related to my state of mind on a Friday after work when I was coaching.
But that's the thing, isn't it? Whether it's coaching, managing, going to work, as an employee, whatever it is, life will trigger you in some way, in a good way or in a bad way, that, sometimes you turn up, a lot of the time you'll turn up to an appointment, to the workplace, whatever, not in a optimum state of mind. But I think the key is getting the self-awareness in place to be able to go, I'm feeling like this, but I don't want this to transmit to other people. So I need to get myself in a different state before I walk through that door. Yeah. And that's where I think the intelligence comes in, actually. I think really good leaders and managers manage that brilliantly. Yeah. Brilliantly. I think back in the day, a lot of leaders and coaches would be of the mindset, well, this is me. And, like it or lump it,
If you don't like it, you know what you
Exactly. But I think now we've come to realise that to get the best out of other people, as a leader, you have to flex to them.
Sure.
You have to, create an environment for that individual to get the best out of. Just doing it one way is a very unskillful. It's taking a sledgehammer to hit the nut. It's clumsy and it's ineffective.
So the pathway for coaching and mentoring that you've looked after in many different guises, you mentioned about one of the things you do is throw them off a high cliff and the reactions. Well, what else is involved in that? I'm quite interested as coaching goes higher up the levels.
Yeah. So that particular program that I was talking about, we call it level 4. So in this country, you've got in cricket, you've got 4 levels basically of coaching badge. You've got level 1 for people just starting out in the game and working with inexperienced players. And then you've got level 2, who I would say level 2 helps those in club cricket to do the job of working with club players and juniors. Level 3 is more performance orientated, so perhaps working with slightly better players, players who are on a pathway, performance pathway, maybe a county age group situation. They're playing for Lancashire under-15s or they're on the academy. And then level 4 is really like your professional coaches, people dealing with elite athletes, international players, county players, etc. So the level 4, that was that program where we kind of take them up to Lake District for a few days and terrify them.
Yeah.
Put heart rate
Paid
monitors
money
on.
for this.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And I do it as well. I used to do it as well, you know.
Right, okay.
Which every time I'd be on a cliff, I'd be like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? But anyway, that would be a 2-year program. That would be the start. And essentially, the first part of the program is leadership and management skills.
Right.
So helping them to understand themselves, self-awareness, emotional intelligence, impact on others, and then understanding how to get the best out of others. So, leadership and management training. And then we go into the cricket skills after that. Because what we've found is that if you lead with the cricket skills and then you go into the leadership management side, it's like, well, I've got the cricket stuff now. Whereas if we prioritise that, it gave a strong signal that actually this is at the core of what you're going to do. And the context, working with a batter, working with a keeper, the context might change, but those leadership and management skills, you're going to bring that into every situation. So I would say it was a leadership and management course built around the context of cricket. I would
Sure.
market it as. Yeah.
Well, if you're at that level, you're probably in a leadership role anyway, whether it's in a school
or want to be.
Yeah. So bringing it forward to the consulting business, what kind of clients have you worked with? Are you looking to work with now?
Yeah. So the last 3 weeks have been incredibly frustrating because I've had some work lined up and I've had to reschedule, but luckily they have rescheduled. It's a mixture. So straight after this, I've got an individual client who I'm going to see. That's part of his coach development journey. He's a working coach at the moment, wants to kind of explore his options in the coaching world. Is it Thursday today?
It is Thursday.
Yeah, tomorrow I'm working with a new co-business, which is building a platform a tech platform to. It's an interesting story, this actually. But the founder of this business was successful in building a tech platform for driving instructors, I think it was.
Okay.
And then he sold it, and then I don't know, went off to Barbados and drank pina coladas or whatever he did, and then thought, actually, I want to do something else.
Right.
And he loved his cricket, but when he got into business, that went on the back burner, and he didn't do it. Anyway, he's kind of fallen in love with cricket, and he wants to create a similar business.
Okay.
To the one that he did with driving instructors,
right.
but with cricket and cricket coaches.
Okay.
So I'm doing some consulting work with him tomorrow. Next week I'm working with Welsh Rugby Union. A bit of strategic work for their player and coach development. So it's a real mixture of sporting and business, individuals and organisations. Not necessarily confined to that. Anybody actually who either themselves wants to increase and improve their personal growth and their professional growth, or organisations wanting to develop their people.
Yeah.
So anybody and everybody, but the caveat being that you want to become a better version of yourself, and fulfill your potential or the potential of the people who you're working with and leading.
Amazing. In terms of someone who is a coach that in any sport really that's looking to develop and become better, do you have any advice on that?
Yeah. give me a call.
Yeah.
No, I think so going back to that 360 that I described, I think it's really useful as a starting point to first get a good all-round understanding of where other people see you, and that doesn't need to be in a formal process like a 360. It can be a chat, can't it? Can you, spare me 5 minutes to give me your experience of seeing me do this, and get a good baseline of where others see you, so that you can marry it to where you see yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's the start of actually developing your own self-awareness. And then from there, you somehow need to keep the passion and enthusiasm for what you do, and that can be tough, particularly when you're working long hours, you're not getting the fruits of your work. The first business that I set up nearly 25 years ago, crikey, I had this really charismatic old gentleman who was one of the richest men in the country. You know, the Times, the Telegraph, they bring out these rich lists, and he was in it. And he was a real character. And one day I said to him, Mike, what's the secret of your success?
Yeah.
And we're in his house, and he said, come here, I'll show you. And he walked me into his study. Yeah. And it was like a traditional English study, like oak panelled walls, the green
mahogany table,
the green lamp on there, and like, oh my God, right? And there was a little piece of paper from a, like when you go to a hotel and you've got a notepad at the side of your bed, one of them, but it was like from a really expensive hotel in south of France, and he got it, and he wrote on it. He said, there you go, and he shoved it in my hand, and I opened it. And I looked at him. I was like, "This is a secret of success." And he said, "Yeah." And on it, he'd written 3 words: common sense and enthusiasm. Forward. And I'm like, "Huh?" And he says, "Well, yeah, common sense ain't that common. Just make good decisions." Yeah. And the enthusiasm bit is you need to love what you do, because if you don't love what you do, when the going gets tough, and it will get tough, you'll give up. Or you won't give it what you need to. Right. And so, if you're embarking on something like coaching, make sure you love it, because and you want to progress. Make sure you love it, because, or anything that you do, because, you're going to be at work, you're going to be doing this a lot. A big part of your day is going to be devoted to this. So you might as well enjoy what you do, because life is short, and live the life that you want to live. First of all, get on a ladder that you want to climb, rather than get up a big ladder and get halfway up and think, I don't want to be this anymore. And that happens to a lot of people. It happened to me, actually, but it happens to a lot of people. You put a lot of time and effort chasing a dream, or chasing a goal, should I say, and then you get there and you think, I don't want to be here, but I've set my life around this now, and I have to continue it. So if you're embarking on something like coaching or something new, make sure it's something that you really, really want to embark on, because then you will, I think, have the intrinsic motivation to drive your way forward. I've completely forgotten what the original question was, because I've had a
No, I think I have as well, but it was good. We can clip that one up. We're coming to around the end of the episode, but I'm of an age now where I've got a son, I've got friends that have got sons and daughters that are playing football and cricket and sport, and the main theme of the conversations at the moment was, I can't believe the behaviour of the parents.
Yeah. And
I heard you talk about in a previous podcast about the role of parents and role of the coaches, and how there's obviously this is probably going to be a massively long answer, but if your parent becomes your coach, and the relationship there, and what it should be, and then how other coaches are. I'm interested in the dynamic and your thoughts on the parent-child relationship when it comes to sport and coaching.
So it's really complex, and there's a lot at play here. But essentially, I can't think of a parent who's not wanted the best for their children. I'm sure it's happened, and it has happened, unfortunately, but it's a very, very small minority. The vast majority of parents, they want the best for their kids. How they go about it can get in the way of that, and it can be detrimental. And so I think that one of the things advice that I would give to a coach would be spend a lot of time educating the parents, because you might work with your athlete an hour a week. If you're on a performance program, you might see them 3 or 4 or 5 hours a week, but it is dwarfed by the hours that they will be in the company of their parents, and that actually can squash all the good work that you create. Because if you're trying to build up their confidence, for example, and develop their self-worth away from the sport that they're playing, so it's healthy and all these things, and then you've had a great session with a young athlete, they're smiling, they're happy, and then they get in the car and they're driving home, and the parent suddenly starts going, right, I need to add some value now, and suddenly takes it in a different direction, where maybe it starts eroding the child's confidence, or it becomes less enjoyable, because it's too heavy, it's too intense. Then your work's undone. Then. And it's not just that. It's that child will then go home, have those conversations probably into the evening, over dinner time, that are difficult to escape sometimes, particularly with passionate parents. And those who really want to kind of make a difference. So I think coaches will make their job a lot easier by getting a good relationship with the parents and saying, this is what I'm trying to create here. This is the work that we're doing, and it'd be so useful if we were aligned on this. It's a bit like at professional level, you'll have multi-disciplinary teams. You'll have your strength and conditioning coach, you'll have your physio, you'll have your psych, you'll have your doctor, you'll have your head coach, your batting coach, whatever it is. But all those, they need to be on the same page. They all need to be aligned. And I would say the parent is part of that team. So, what would you do with those other support staff? You'd update them. You'd communicate with them. You'd explain the vision. You'd explain where you want to go with this. And yet a lot of coaches take the view, stay away. This is my domain. Don't come anywhere near. Well, that might work in the hour that you've got them. But in the subsequent hour, it's going to blow up in your face. Because if the parent doesn't know what's going on, the first thing they're going to say to little Johnny is, well, what did you do? Well, we did this. Why are you doing that? Well, I'd do it differently. Well, it's not how I used to do it, or whatever, So parent education is absolutely key, I would say. And parents, like I said, they've got the interests of their own kids at heart. And if they don't listen to the coach in that moment, then I think there's a very clear choice. If they listen to the coach and go, well, that's rubbish, there's a clear choice here. Well, either let's continue to work together, or let's not, find a different coach. If you don't respect me fundamentally, if the parent doesn't respect the coach, then it ain't going to work. So, you have to get buy-in from the parents for sure.
Sounds very like what you have to do with clients and with team members, where you have to tell them what we're doing, why, what the results are, what's the future look like based on what we're trying to achieve here. And when they buy in, you're more likely to keep them as a client, they're more likely to be happy, they're more likely to help you with what you're all trying to achieve, and you're more likely then to have success in the projects that you're doing. And it just sounds very similar.
100%. I think Simon Sinek, The Power of Why, he wrote a book,
Yeah.
and it's an old book, isn't it? But it's exactly about this. Start with your why, not how, not when, but what, but why, because that's what will connect people to you, and your cause. Bring them in, and if you bring them in and they don't like it, like I said, you've got a discussion then about whether you want to continue working with them or not.
It's a chat to have. Well, it's been really great having the chat, and eventually,
I'm sorry about
you're
that.
feeling a lot better than you were for the last few weeks, and if we'll put all your details on the podcast, and if anyone wants to find you, what's the website URL for you?
Yeah, so it's a funny one because some search engines just hate it. They don't please put in a proper URL, but the URL is www.nathanwood.consulting.
Right.
So it hasn't got a .com at the end or a .co.
No, it's common now.
It's quite common, yeah. In fact, I think LinkedIn don't like it.
Oh, is that right?
Yes, I couldn't believe it. Anyway, the other day. So
it's like people going off LinkedIn.
Well, that's what it is. Yeah. Nathanwood.consulting is the site.
Fantastic. Yeah. Well, again, thanks for coming on, and good luck with it all.
Thank you, James. I really, really enjoyed it.
Good.